Welcome to Between Sleep and Science. Tonight, we're going to explore a secret, silent conversation happening inside every living thing. A world of molecular messengers quietly shaping every action, every thought, and every rhythm of life on Earth. Hormones are the ultimate hidden conductors. They guide bodies through the seasons, set the pace of behavior, and weave together the inner and outer realities of life. From the simplest single cell to the most complicated creature, these subtle chemical signals decide when an organism rests, when it invests energy in growth, when it transforms its very structure, and when it needs to let go. This is a journey into the chemistry of feeling and survival, into the ancient, quiet intelligence that allows all living systems to adapt, remember, and endure. It's a story that stretches back to the earliest life in the primeval oceans, reaching forward to influence every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle, necessary shift you may never consciously notice. If these quiet wanderings bring you even a moment of calm, feel free to leave a few warm words or tell us in the comments which city you're watching from, so we can see how far our explorations travel. You can also simply like and subscribe. Your support helps other weary hearts discover this cozy corner. And now, you don't need to do anything at all. Just settle in comfortably and let the slow, steady rhythm of deep time gently carry you away from your worries. Let the journey begin. 1. The ancient survival logic of single cells hormones allowed early life to coordinate before any nerves had ever evolved. In the earliest days of life, even single cells needed coordination. They had to decide when to divide, when to conserve energy, when to drift toward food, or when to retreat from danger. Chemical messages solved this fundamental problem because a molecule drifting through water can carry an instruction without needing any complex wiring whatsoever. Over vast stretches of deep time, these simple signals grew more specialized. Some evolved as basic stress alarms, others as growth cues, and still others as essential tools that helped early colonies of cells start to behave like a coordinated team rather than a random crowd. This ancient origin is exactly why hormonal signaling feels so fundamental to us today. They are not a recent technological upgrade layered onto biology. They are literally part of the earliest life operating system. Even now, modern hormone systems often mirror that ancient survival logic. Detect a change, release a messenger, adjust the entire organism. The truly profound realization is that our complex bodies still run on that same chemical architecture, using tiny molecular notes to synchronize trillions of cells into a single, cohesive, continuous living decision. 2. Adrenaline, the slow motion button. Have you ever felt time stretch in a crisis? That surreal slow motion effect is a product of adrenaline. In a sudden moment of intense danger, the body has no time for negotiation or debate. It needs instant priority, instant clarity, and instant motion. Adrenaline floods the bloodstream, and your nervous system performs a radical, rapid internal reset, like a camera switching immediately to the fastest possible shutter speed. Pupils dilate to pull in maximum light. Blood flow is aggressively redirected toward the large muscles that might need to sprint or climb. The liver receives a sharp nudge, forcing it to release stored energy reserves so your movement has instant, ready-to-burn fuel. Simultaneously, the brain's attention system clamps down. It starts sampling the world far more aggressively, recording a denser, more vivid stream of detail with every single beat of your heart. It's this compressed, dense recording that creates the strange feeling that events are unfolding in slow motion. The outside world hasn't changed its pace. Your inner clock just became 100 times more detailed. When memory later replays that intense recording, the interval feels dramatically longer than it truly was. Adrenaline is more than a rush. It is a rapid biological decision. Spend massive energy on survival and buy extra crystal clear perception when clarity is the only thing that matters. 3. Norepinephrine, the vigilance tuner. While adrenaline focuses on action, its cousin norepinephrine acts as a quieter signal that tunes vigilance and sustained focus. Norepinephrine, often released alongside adrenaline, doesn't just trigger the immediate fight-or-flight burst. It works over a slightly longer time frame to sharpen overall alertness. It narrows attention, helping the brain filter out background noise and concentrate only on the most salient information, the potential threat or the immediate task. This shift creates a state of sustained readiness. It's the chemistry that keeps a predator silently stalking its prey or a guard remaining alert through a long night watch. Norepinephrine maintains a baseline of heightened tension and responsiveness, ensuring that the organism remains primed for action, but without the full, energy-draining flood of a total adrenaline dump. It is the chemical context that turns a scene from harmless background into a field full of potential clues. 4. Cortisol. The editor of memory cortisol is essential for surviving danger, but it secretly reshapes memory as it works. It's commonly called the stress hormone, but its actual mission is far more like emergency resource management. When the brain senses a long-lasting challenge, it signals a chain of glands that concludes with cortisol being released into the blood. Cortisol ensures energy remains available, helps stabilize blood pressure, and adjusts how the immune system allocates its resources, because long-term survival demands careful budgeting. But here is the eerie part. Cortisol also reaches the brain. Memory is not a simple video recording. It's an active, living process that constantly chooses what to store and how strongly to save it. Cortisol has the power to tilt that choice. In the heat of the moment, it sharpens focus only on what is urgent. Over longer spans, however, it can interfere with the brain's ability to form certain kinds of detailed, contextual memories, specifically when and where events occurred. It simultaneously can amplify the emotional tag attached to an experience, causing some moments to burn themselves vividly into your mind while the surrounding context blur away. Cortisol isn't just helping the body endure stress, it is actively editing the story the brain keeps about that stress. 5. Cortisol, the immune system's trade-off. The immune system's response to stress is managed by cortisol, which provides a crucial short-term boost at a long-term cost. In an immediate, acute emergency, a threat or injury, the body often benefits from a sudden burst of immunological readiness. Cortisol helps mobilize immune resources quickly, increasing certain defensive activities, so the body is prepared for the infection or damage that might follow danger. This short-term effect makes perfect evolutionary sense, as threats in nature often came with wounds. However, if the stress chemistry is prolonged, the same high levels of cortisol push the immune system in the opposite direction. Maintaining high alertness is metabolically expensive. Over time, the body is forced to conserve energy, and immune activity can be dampened. This makes it harder to fight off invaders and easier for inflammation to become chronic and unbalanced. This two-faced behavior is a trade-off, short-term defense balanced against long-term cost control. Cortisol acts like a temporary wartime budget, followed by a forced austerity plan, depending entirely on the duration of the challenge. 6. The antler construction project. Antler growth in deer is one of the fastest, most complex hormone-driven bone growth processes known in nature. Antlers are not permanent structures. They are rebuilt completely from scratch, repeatedly at a speed that seems impossible for bone tissue. During the growth season, the developing antler is covered in soft, living tissue called velvet, which is densely packed with blood vessels and nerves. This velvet feeds the expanding bone mass with minerals, oxygen, and intense growth signals, allowing new tissue to form at a breathtaking rate. Hormones coordinate this powerful surge, directly linking the season to major changes in metabolism, blood circulation, and bone-building activity. The process is not just about adding length. Antlers must branch, thicken, and shape themselves into complex structures robust enough to withstand brutal impacts during the rut. Later, as the seasons shift, hormone patterns change again. The velvet is shed, blood supply retreats, and the antler transforms from a rapidly growing organ into a hardened, dense tool. This annual cycle is a pure showcase of what the endocrine system can accomplish when it mobilizes all the body's resources toward a single, intricate construction project in a very short span of time. 7. Growth hormone. The tissue sculptor. Growth hormone, GH, does not deliver a single uniform message. It sculpts tissues differently depending on age and environment. In early life, GH primarily drives overall expansion, directing bone lengthening, organ development, and body proportions. As maturity is achieved, its role subtly shifts toward refinement and maintenance, focusing on tissue repair, muscle integrity, and metabolic balance. The environment matters deeply. Adequate nutrition, restorative sleep, and physical activity all influence how tissues interpret and respond to the GH signal. This flexibility allows the body to adapt its investment strategy, investing aggressively in growth when conditions are favorable and conserving energy when resources are scarce. GH also works indirectly, stimulating other powerful signaling molecules, like the insulin-like growth factors, IGFs, that shape local responses within specific tissues. The profound insight is that growth never truly ends. Hormonal guidance continues reshaping the body throughout life, constantly adjusting its resilience in response to changing circumstances. 8. Insulin. The master growth signal. Insulin is one of the body's clearest ways of announcing that the outside world has been generous, and it acts as a master growth signal. When nutrients arrive, this messenger tells cells across the body that building is allowed. In response, many tissues immediately shift from scarcity mode into investment mode, increasing the uptake of amino acids, assembling new proteins, and supporting the storage of energy in forms that can be accessed later. This is why insulin is deeply tied to growth and repair. It dictates how muscle tissue responds after a meal, how fat tissue decides what to store, and how the liver coordinates the flow of metabolic fuels between different organs. Seen this way, insulin is far more than a metabolic helper. It is a permission slip that allows the body to spend resources on maintenance, resilience, and long-term structure rather than immediate conservation. 9. Ghrelin. Hunger as a learning tool. Ghrelin does more than just trigger hunger. It actively enhances learning and reward-seeking. Ghrelin levels rise when the body anticipates a need for food, but its effects are not confined to the stomach. Its influence extends into the cognitive system, where it actively enhances attention toward cues associated with nourishment. It increases the brain's willingness to learn from food-related experiences and interacts with reward circuits, making exploration and persistence more likely when energy is scarce. This powerful connection ensures that hunger is paired with problem-solving rather than paralysis. By influencing memory formation, ghrelin helps organisms remember exactly where resources were found and the steps taken to obtain them. The hormone does not merely create discomfort, it mobilizes complex cognition. Through ghrelin, physical need is translated into mental focus, integrating metabolism with adaptive, goal-oriented behavior. 10. Leptin, the long-term forecaster. Leptin provides the brain with a long-range perspective on energy security, acting as an energetic forecaster. Unlike ghrelin or other hunger signals that respond to recent meals, leptin levels reflect the total stored energy, the accumulated reserves over time. Fat tissue releases leptin in proportion to its reserves, allowing the brain to estimate whether the body is living in abundance or scarcity. This crucial information influences appetite, metabolism, and even decisions about growth and reproduction. When leptin levels suggest adequate reserves, the brain permits energy-intensive processes to continue. When leptin signals depletion, the brain encourages conservation and restraint. Leptin's role is patience. It prevents the body from overreacting to short-term fluctuations, grounding decisions in long-term trends. Through this hormone, the body develops a sense of energetic foresight, balancing present needs against future survival. 11. Testosterone. Beyond muscle. Testosterone shapes motivation and risk-taking in the brain, far beyond its role in physical growth. Rather than being a simple aggression switch, testosterone primarily influences how the brain evaluates effort, competition, and reward. It increases sensitivity to social status and opportunity. In some contexts, this drives an individual toward focused persistence and the bold pursuit of goals. In others, it heightens the drive to protect one's reputation or to seek recognition. Testosterone also interacts with brain systems that handle decision-making, influencing how powerfully a potential payoff stands out compared to a potential cost. This bias can tilt the balance toward taking risks, not because the individual becomes blind to risk, but because the possible gain feels significantly more compelling. But context is everything. The social environment, personal history, and the meaning of a situation all profoundly shape how this hormone's effects are expressed. The incredible takeaway is that a molecule can bias the inner weighting system that guides every choice you make, subtly changing what feels worth the effort, what feels threatening, and what feels genuinely possible. 12. Estrogen, the neural tuner. Estrogen is often framed as a reproductive signal, but its influence in the brain is subtle, continuous, and vital for neural flexibility and resilience. Estrogen affects how easily neurons form new connections and how strongly those connections communicate across many brain regions. This means it constantly modulates learning, attention, and emotional balance, not as a one-time developmental event, but as an ongoing adjustment that shifts with life stages and internal cycles. It also strongly interacts with stress management systems, influencing how the brain recovers after a challenge and how quickly it returns to baseline calm. In essence, estrogen tunes the brain's readiness to adapt. It's like adjusting the softness of clay, allowing the same life experience to leave a deeper imprint at one time and a lighter imprint at another. Its presence supports neural flexibility, the essential ability to shift strategies, update beliefs, and absorb new skills throughout adulthood. 13. The octopus's instant disguise. Octopuses use hormones to shift their identity instantly, moving from focused curiosity to total camouflage. The octopus is a master of immediate reinvention. One moment it might be delicately exploring a coral crevice, like a careful marine scientist. The next, it becomes a living patch of rock, shifting its texture, color, and depth to vanish completely. Deep beneath the skin, microscopic pigment sacs called chromatophores expand and contract with startling speed, while deeper layers of cells reflect light to create shimmer and depth. This stunning visual trick is coordinated across the entire animal. The whole creature has to shift into a new state. Hormones help synchronize this total body transformation, linking perception to action. When signals of threat spike, the internal chemistry pushes the animal into hiding mode, coordinating its posture, muscle tension, and skin patterns all at once. When the environment feels safe, different chemical messages support exploration, learning, and complex problem-solving. In essence, hormones help load the octopus into a specific mode, curious and engaged, or cautious and concealed. It's a deep, non-verbal emotional biology, a chemical mechanism for turning a complex creature into the exact version of itself that the present moment demands. 14. Ant pheromones. Chemistry in the air. Ant colonies function like a single massive organism, relying on hormone-like pheromones to achieve this unity. A busy ant colony exhibits the behaviors of a single coordinated creature. It builds complex nests, harvests food efficiently, defends territory, and adapts strategy instantly. Yet, no single ant understands the whole plan. The secret is chemical messages released into the environment that act like invisible signposts. A trail pheromone turns the ground into a temporary, urgent map pointing toward a food source. An alarm pheromone can instantly shift the mood of a crowded nest from cooperative calm to coordinated defense. Other pheromones help regulate individual roles, determining whether workers prioritize nursing the young, building new tunnels, or foraging for supplies. There are even colony-wide signals reflecting the status and fertility of the queen, which helps maintain the stability of the entire social structure. The truly mind-boggling realization is that these chemicals don't just communicate information. They trigger coordinated waves of behavior, causing thousands of individuals to move and act as if they share one massive unified nervous system. It's a kind of distributed endocrinology, chemistry in the air that transforms a swarm into a unified response system. 15. Oxytocin, the social amplifier. Oxytocin can powerfully strengthen social bonds, but it can also increase distrust of outsiders. It is widely known as the bonding hormone, and it certainly supports attachment, caregiving, and feelings of closeness. However, its Its effects are not a simple love switch. They depend entirely on the social context. Oxytocin works by heightening the importance of all social cues. In a setting defined as safe and familiar, that amplification deepens connection, helping individuals feel more attuned to a friend's voice or a loved one's face. But in an uncertain or challenging setting, that same heightened social focus can sharpen boundaries. It makes the brain more protective of the familiar us and far more cautious toward the unfamiliar them. This is why oxytocin is not about universal warmth. It is a social amplifier. It strengthens the sense of group belonging, which, by necessity, sometimes makes the sense of exclusion feel sharper as well. The deeper marvel is that a simple molecule can influence not just individual feelings, but the fundamental structure of group psychology, subtly shifting how minds categorize belonging, safety, and threat. 16. Oxytocin, the chemistry of sensitivity. The precise effect of oxytocin hinges on the density and location of its receptors in the brain, making small anatomical differences lead to massive behavioral change. In species that exhibit strong social bonding, such as the prairie vole mentioned earlier, key brain regions involved in reward and memory have a high concentration of oxytocin receptors. This means that social interactions powerfully activate the brain's pleasure and learning centers. In closely related non-monogamous species, the hormone itself is identical, but the receptor distribution is different. There are fewer receptors in those key areas. This illustrates a profound biological concept. The message is less important than who is listening and how many ears they have. Hormones create social structure not by dictating one emotion, but by tuning the brain's specific sensitivity to social context. 17. Vasopressin, water and loyalty. The hormone vasopressin plays a dual role in memory, social bonding, and water balance. Vasopressin is a remarkable example of how evolution layers meaning onto the same molecule. Its essential role is physical. When hydration drops, vasopressin signals the kidneys to conserve water aggressively, stabilizing blood volume and circulation. This function alone is critical for survival in demanding conditions. Simultaneously, vasopressin operates within the brain. It influences how social information is processed and remembered, strengthening the recognition of familiar individuals and reinforcing social boundaries. In species like the prairie vole, this hormone contributes directly to the formation of stable, long-term pair bonds. What makes vasopressin so deeply fascinating is that its physical and social roles share a common theme: preservation. It helps retain essential water within the body and helps retain necessary social stability within relationships. Through this hormone, biology links the survival of the individual body with the continuity of the social structure. 18. Prolactin, the motivation of care. Prolactin drives parenting behaviors in both mammals and birds. Parenting is not just a collection of learned actions. It is a sustained, powerful motivational state, and prolactin is one of its core components. In mammals, it supports caregiving actions that go far beyond basic feeding. It increases hyperattentiveness to the cues of offspring, radically reduces responsiveness to competing distractions, and supports fierce persistence during demanding periods of care. In birds, prolactin plays a similarly potent role, driving nest building, egg incubation, and the relentless, patient feeding of the young. What makes prolactin truly remarkable is that it influences caregivers of both sexes in different species, showing that its function is profoundly behavioral rather than strictly reproductive. It literally rewrites priorities in the brain, making the needs of the young feel urgent, non-negotiable, and emotionally significant. This hormonal influence transforms vulnerability into unshakable attachment, ensuring that care continues even when it is physically exhausting or costly. Prolactin reveals how hormones are capable of supporting the most complex social roles by altering motivation and emotional weighting over long stretches of time. 19. The plume of ecdysone insects use ecdysone to trigger complete, life-changing body reorganization during molting and metamorphosis. Ecdysone is one of the most dramatic hormones in the natural world because its command is to tear down and rebuild. In many insects, growth requires discarding the external skeleton and, in some stages, undergoing total metamorphosis. When ecdysone levels rise at key, precise times, tissues respond in a carefully choreographed way. Old structures are broken down, new structures are rebuilt, and entirely new adult features, wings, antennae, new mouthparts, emerge from clusters of cells that were patiently waiting for the right chemical signal. The transformation must maintain vital functions while the animal is literally rearranging itself. Ecdysone provides the essential timing and order, ensuring the change happens in a survivable sequence. Metamorphosis is not magic, but it's close. It is chemistry turning one life strategy, a crawling larva, into a completely different one, a flying adult, all through a single hormonal command that rewrites the blueprint while the process is in motion. 20. The architect of change, frog. Metamorphosis. Frog metamorphosis is orchestrated almost entirely by thyroid hormones. A tadpole is not merely a small version of a frog. It is a completely different life strategy, breathing with gills, swimming with a tail, and feeding in an aquatic environment. Then, as metamorphosis begins, levels of thyroid hormones rise, and the animal becomes an intense, rapid construction site. Limbs sprout and strengthen. The gut is completely remodeled to process a new, terrestrial diet. The skull reshapes itself. The tail, once absolutely essential, becomes unnecessary and is carefully broken down so its materials can be reused by the growing body. Even the respiratory system is entirely reworked as lungs take over from gills. What makes this transformation so astonishing is the necessary coordination. These upgrades are not independent. They are a synchronized chain reaction that must occur in the correct sequence, at the correct pace, without tearing the living organism apart. Thyroid hormones acts as the master timing signals, instructing tissues when to grow, when to die back, and when to reorganize their structure. Metamorphosis is the ultimate proof that hormones can be biological architects, not just nudging mood or behavior, but fully rewriting an entire body's blueprint from the inside out, turning one creature into a new one while maintaining the same continuity of life. 21. Salmon. Rewriting internal rules. Salmon rely on complex hormone cascades to survive the radical transition from ocean to fresh water. A salmon's journey upstream requires a total internal reorganization because the chemistry of saltwater and freshwater is profoundly different. Without preparation, their cells would dangerously swell or shrink. Hormones initiate this preparation long before the fish even enters the river. Gill cells begin altering how they transport salts, switching from releasing excess salt to aggressively conserving it. Kidneys change their filtering protocols. Metabolism shifts to support extreme endurance. These changes occur in overlapping, carefully staged phases, guided by multiple hormones working together as a cascade. Each signal prepares the body for the next adjustment, ensuring a smooth, survivable transition rather than a fatal shock. The astonishing truth is that a salmon doesn't just tolerate environmental change. It actively rewrites its internal physiological rules through hormonal coordination. This ability allows a single organism to thrive in two worlds that are otherwise chemically incompatible. 22. Crustaceans. Hormonal coordination of molting crustaceans must shed their hard outer shells in a process called molting, which is orchestrated with dangerous precision by specific hormones. For a crustacean, growth demands destruction followed by renewal, since its hard external shell cannot expand. The entire body must periodically be shed, which is a period of extreme vulnerability. Hormones orchestrate this transformation with incredible precision. Before the molting begins, chemical signals trigger the formation of a new, soft exoskeleton beneath the old one. At the same time, muscles detach in a controlled way, and the animal increases internal pressure by taking in water. When the hormonal timing is precisely right, the old shell splits and the animal pulls free, soft and defenseless. In the hours or days that follow, hormones guide the rapid hardening of the new shell, restoring protection before predators can strike. Molting too early or too late can be fatal. Hormonal coordination ensures that growth, vulnerability, and recovery occur in the correct, survivable sequence, making hormones the masters of periodic physical renovation. 23. Reptiles. Temperature as a sex switch. In many reptiles, hormones allow temperature to determine the sex of offspring, challenging simple genetics. In species like turtles and alligators, the sex of the embryo is not fixed at conception. Instead, the temperature during a narrow window of development influences enzyme activity, which, in turn, subtly alters the activity of sex hormones. Slight differences in warmth can shift hormonal pathways toward male or female development. This unique mechanism allows populations to dynamically adjust sex ratios in response to environmental conditions, which can improve the species' long-term survival under climate changes. Hormones act as crucial translators, converting external temperature, an environmental cue, into internal biological instruction. This system demonstrates an extraordinary openness between the outside world and development, revealing how biology uses hormonal sensitivity to adapt rather than rigidly encoding outcomes. 24. Bees. Juvenile hormone and destiny. Inside a hive, juvenile hormone helps determine whether a young bee larva becomes a worker or a queen, making destiny chemical. Insects rely on hormonal decisions made during development to shape their life path. Juvenile hormone is central to this process in bees, interacting with diet and timing to influence growth rate, body size, reproductive anatomy, and even the organization of the future adult brain for social tasks. A queen is built for longevity and massive egg-laying capacity, supported by a unique physiology. Workers, by contrast, become specialized laborers with bodies and behaviors tuned for nursing, building, guarding, and foraging. The fascinating part is that this is a biological response to the colony's social needs. The hive can shift development toward the kind of individual it requires. Juvenile hormone is part of the mechanism that transforms identical genetic potential into radically different lives, all in service of the shared collective. 25. Melanocyte stimulating hormone, linking skin and hunger. Melanocyte stimulating hormone, MSH, illustrates how one chemical signal can link two seemingly unrelated systems, skin pigmentation and appetite. In the skin, MSH influences pigment production, affecting how cells respond to sunlight and helping protect deeper tissues from damage. This role ties outward appearance directly to environmental exposure. At the same time, MSH acts powerfully in the brain, where it participates in appetite regulation and energy balance. By influencing neural circuits related to feeding behavior, it helps adjust how strongly hunger is felt and how rewarding food seems. This remarkable dual influence connects external protection with internal resource management. When conditions demand greater sun protection or conservation, the same hormone can contribute to both goals. The deeper insight is that hormones do not respect the mental boundaries we draw between body systems. Instead, they integrate multiple priorities into unified signals. 26. Parathyroid hormone and calcitonin, the calcium dance. Parathyroid hormone, PTH, and calcitonin work in opposition to manage a delicate essential balancing act, Karushiumu levels. Calcium is absolutely vital for muscle contraction, nerve signaling, and clotting. Yet its concentration in the blood must remain within an impossibly narrow, precise range. PTH and calcitonin are the quiet managers of this system. When blood calcium dips too low, PTH is released. It signals bones to release small amounts of stored calcium and tells the kidneys to stop eliminating it. Conversely, when calcium levels rise too high, calcitonin steps in to signal bone cells to slow the release of calcium, encouraging storage rather than withdrawal. The astonishing part is that bones are not passive pillars, they are dynamic reservoirs. This quiet, continuous chemical control ensures that the body maintains electrical stability and structural strength simultaneously, minute by minute, without ever letting the balance drift. 27. The body's energy budgeter. Thyroxine helps regulate the baseline energy use in nearly every cell of the body. Thyroxine, released by the thyroid gland, is one of the body's great tempo setters. Rather than giving a specific instruction to a single organ, it influences the fundamental pace of countless cellular processes across the entire organism. In virtually all tissues, it affects how actively cells burn fuel, how much heat they generate, and how quickly they assemble and recycle the molecular machinery that sustains life. This is why a shift in thyroid signaling can make the whole body feel different, not just one region. Your heart rate, skin texture, mental clarity, and sensitivity to cold can all change because the underlying cellular economy has been retuned. Thyroxine is not a loud command. It is the background setting quietly deciding how fast your life runs at the level of each tiny cell. Too slow, and growth struggles. Too fast, and the system becomes wasteful and overstimulated. Its power lies in its ubiquity. 28. Melatonin, the nightly calendar and mechanic. Melatonin is famous for controlling sleep, but its influence extends to immunity and aging. It is the body's nightly maintenance whisper. Melatonin is released in a precise daily rhythm, helping every cell in the body anticipate night rather than simply reacting to the darkness. Many tissues use this rhythm as an essential timing cue, adjusting repair processes, metabolic patterns, and immune activity to match the changing environment. Melatonin also acts as a crucial protective signal at the cellular level. It bolsters defenses against the constant molecular damage that accumulates during normal waking life. This is vital because aging isn't one single process. It's the sum of countless tiny failures in cellular maintenance. The nightly rise of melatonin is the body's primary reminder that restoration time has arrived. Furthermore, in many animals, melatonin carries seasonal information. A longer night sends a different message than a shorter one, which can trigger shifts in reproduction, molting, migration readiness, and appetite. Therefore, melatonin is not just a sleep signal. It is a full-fledged calendar and a master mechanic, quietly instructing the body when to conserve, when to repair, and how deeply the world outside has changed its season. 29. Seasonal affective changes. The light translator. Seasonal affective changes, SAC, are driven by hormone pathways that translate light exposure into emotional and metabolic states. Light is one of the most powerful environmental signals the body knows how to read. As daylight lengthens or shortens across the year, hormone systems respond by adjusting sleep timing, energy levels, and emotional tone. These changes evolved to help organisms align behavior with seasonal conditions, such as food availability and temperature. When light exposure decreases, hormone patterns shift toward conservation, lowering alertness and encouraging rest. When light increases, different signals promote activity, exploration, and social engagement. This is not a malfunction. It is an ancient adaptation. Hormones act as intermediaries between the sky above and the inner emotional landscape, quietly ensuring that human biology remains connected to the planet's rhythms, even in the age of artificial lighting. 30. The language of rhythm. Some hormones communicate by rhythm, pulsing, rather than by sheer strength of signal. The body speaks a time-based language that can carry meaning even when the total amount of a circulating hormone remains low. Many endocrine signals are released in distinct, repeating patterns, pulses, and cells listen for that timing, much like a musician listens for a beat. A single, brief pulse can trigger a cascade that a steady, continuous signal would fail to start. This is because receptors on the target cells can become less responsive if the exposure is constant. With rhythmic on and off release, the message remains crisp and the target tissue is allowed to reset between bursts. This allows the exact same hormone to deliver different instructions based purely on its tempo, not just its quantity. For example, certain reproductive signals rely entirely on the timing of these pulses to decide whether the body moves toward fertility or toward suppression. The wonder is that hormones carry not only instructions, they carry schlees. They coordinate organs by sharing timing information, essentially turning the whole body into a synchronized, high-functioning system that runs on precise chemical clocks. 31. The epigenetic manager. Hormones can alter how genes are read without ever changing the underlying genetic code itself. Genes are not destiny in the simple way we often imagine. The DNA sequence is a library, but the cell chooses which books to open, which chapters to reread, and which pages to keep permanently closed. Hormones influence those choices by triggering molecular pathways that add or remove small chemical markers around the DNA and its packaging proteins. These markers can make certain genes easier to access or harder to activate, shifting what the cell produces without rewriting a single letter of the genetic code. This process is called epigenetics. This is one of the body's strategies for long-term adaptation. A sustained hormonal environment can guide a cell to permanently emphasize repair pathways or to adjust its energy handling. The wonder here is subtle. A hormone can create stability or flexibility, not by changing what you are, but by changing which parts of your potential are expressed in a given moment. It is chemistry guiding interpretation, turning the static genome into a responsive living performance. 32. Serotonin, the gut brain. Highway serotonin affects digestion just as powerfully as it affects mood. While serotonin is famous for its role in emotional balance and well-being, the majority of it operates outside the brain, specifically in the digestive system. In the gut, serotonin is crucial for regulating motility, movement, secretion, and general sensitivity. It influences how quickly food passes through, how strongly the gut wall responds to stretch, and how digestive signals communicate with the nervous system. This means that digestion is not a mechanical tube. It is a responsive sensory organ. Emotional states can directly influence gut serotonin activity, and likewise, changes in gut activity can send signals that profoundly affect mood, creating a continuous two-way chemical conversation between the brain and the body. This critical link explains why emotional stress can instantly alter appetite or cause physical discomfort, and why long-term digestive health can fundamentally influence emotional well-being. Serotonin acts as the principal bridge between feeling and physiology, reminding us that the gut is not just a processing center, it's a responsive sensory organ. 33. The unconscious thermostat hormones help regulate body temperature without any conscious awareness. Your body temperature remains incredibly stable, yet it is constantly being adjusted in response to internal and external conditions. Hormones are central to this quiet regulation. They influence how much heat is produced by cells, how much is retained by the body, and how much is released into the environment. Certain hormonal signals increase metabolic activity, causing cells to generate more heat. Others encourage heat loss by widening blood vessels near the skin. These adjustments happen continuously, even while you sleep, requiring no input from your conscious mind. Temperature regulation is not a simple on-off thermostat. It is a negotiated process that balances energy availability, immune activity, and environmental exposure. Hormones allow the body to maintain thermal stability while adapting to changing demands, turning temperature into a flexible tool rather than a fixed number. 34. Marine mammals. The chemical insulation. Marine mammals rely on hormonal tuning of insulation and metabolism to survive in freezing ocean environments. Living in cold water creates a constant, massive drain on body heat. Survival is achieved not just through thick blubber, but through endocrine coordination. Hormones influence the growth and maintenance of this critical fat layer, which acts as insulation while also serving as a huge energy reserve. Beyond insulation, hormones actively adjust circulation. They reduce blood flow near the surface of the skin and flippers to limit heat loss, while simultaneously supporting a tuned metabolic rate to generate additional warmth when needed. These adjustments must remain flexible because marine mammals constantly transition between the water and air. hormones ensure that survival in extreme cold is a dynamic thermal strategy, allowing life to persist where heat loss is constant and severe. 35. Aldosterone, the quiet supervisor. Aldosterone quietly controls blood pressure by managing microscopic salt movements. Aldosterone works far away from the drama of adrenaline. It acts primarily on the kidneys, where it guides exactly how much sodium the body retains and how much is released into the urine. This decision is profound because water passively follows sodium. When more sodium is kept, water is held too, increasing blood volume and supporting blood pressure. When sodium is released, water leaves with it, easing the pressure. This is managed through microscopic transport proteins, moving ions across cell membranes, one tiny exchange at a time, repeated across billions of kidney cells. The awe-inspiring part is that a single molecule can shape the pressure inside your entire arterial system by directing countless invisible ion movements in the filtering organs you rarely think about. Blood pressure may feel like a single number, but it is the coordinated outcome of trillions of molecular choices, and aldosterone is one of the main chemical supervisors. 36. Renin, long-term circulation management. Renin plays a critical role in long-term blood pressure regulation by initiating a hormonal cascade. Renin is part of a complex system designed to manage circulation over extended periods, not just momentary changes. Released in response to shifts in blood flow or salt balance, renin initiates a powerful cascade that ultimately influences blood vessel tone and overall fluid balance. This system allows the body to adjust pressure gradually, maintaining stability across shifts in hydration, posture, and activity. Renin helps the body anticipate long-term needs, rather than merely reacting to short-term fluctuations. By coordinating with other hormones, it ensures that blood pressure supports organ function without placing unnecessary strain on the heart and vessels. The awe-inspiring part is that such a small signal can influence the force with which blood moves through the entire body. Renin demonstrates how long-term balance is maintained through layered hormonal communication. 37. Adiponectin, the peacemaker. The hormone. Adiponectin links inflammation and metabolism together, acting as a chemical peacemaker. Released by fat tissue, adiponectin demonstrates how intricately connected the body's systems truly are. This hormone encourages efficient metabolism, improving how cells use fuel and increasing sensitivity to energy signals. Simultaneously, adiponectin has powerful calming effects on inflammatory pathways, helping to reduce the chronic, low-level inflammation that can damage tissues over time. This dual role is crucial because metabolism and inflammation often spike together during times of stress or excess. Adiponectin helps counterbalance that dangerous trend, supporting metabolic health while protecting tissues from self-damage. Its existence reminds us that fat tissue is not a passive storage unit, but an active endocrine organ. A single hormone bridges two major systems, coordinating energy use with immune restraint to support long-term stability and health. 38. EPO, tuning the blood. The hormone erythropoietin, EPO, stimulates red blood cell production in direct response to oxygen levels. Oxygen is essential, but the body cannot store large reserves. It relies instead on constant, efficient delivery through red blood cells. EPO manages this delivery system. When oxygen availability drops, such as at high altitude or during sustained physical exertion, EPO levels rise. This hormone acts as a signal to the bone marrow, instructing it to significantly increase the production of new red blood cells, which expands the blood's overall capacity to carry oxygen. This process unfolds over days and weeks, allowing gradual, deep adaptation. EPO does not act blindly. It responds to a precise chemical sensing of oxygen levels in the tissues, ensuring that the blood's composition matches the demands of the environment. The awe-inspiring aspect is that the body can sense something as invisible as oxygen scarcity and respond by altering its own cellular population. 39. Hormones in pregnancy. The cross placenta. Conversation. Hormones can cross the placenta to influence a baby's development before birth, providing a chemical forecast of the outside world. The placenta is not a perfect wall. It is a selective interface, allowing certain molecules to pass while blocking others. Hormones from the mother, and some produced by the placenta itself, enter the developing body, shaping growth, timing, and resource delivery. These signals influence how organs mature, how tissues allocate energy, and how the developing brain prepares for life after birth. The placenta can adjust nutrient transport and hormone signaling in response to maternal stress, illness, or nutritional state. This means prenatal development is not isolated. It is a conversation. Hormones become a way for a developing organism to receive early forecasts about the world it is about to enter, tuning foundational patterns that can echo long after birth. 40. Mammals. Hormonal coordination of birth. Mammals rely on precise hormonal cues to coordinate birth timing, ensuring both parent and offspring are ready for the critical event. An impending birth is a biological deadline that requires extraordinary, coordinated preparation. As pregnancy progresses, changing hormonal patterns gradually prepare the body for labor by altering tissue flexibility, muscle coordination, and sensitivity. Simultaneously, these signals influence fetal development, ensuring vital systems reach sufficient maturity before the exit begins. Hormonal cues also interact with environmental and physiological conditions, allowing timing to adjust if stress or illness arises, which improves survival for both mother and newborn. The remarkable insight is that birth is not triggered by a single switch. It is the result of a coordinated hormonal conversation between tissues, organs, and even generations, a carefully synchronized transition rather than a sudden event. 41. The immune system's negotiator hormones allow the immune system to distinguish between a life-threatening danger and harmless background noise. Your immune system is constantly bombarded by signals: friendly microbes, food particles, dust, and your own healthy cells that could be misread as a threat. Hormones provide the crucial filter by linking immune behavior to the body's overall state. In states of injury or infection, certain hormonal patterns encourage immune cells to mobilize and communicate. But when the threat diminishes, other signals, including cortisol, help calm inflammation, preventing defense from spiraling into self-damage. Hormones also connect immunity with sleep, energy reserves, and seasons. They help immune cells choose the right intensity and duration, acting as a negotiator that prevents panic. Hormones supply the essential context, helping the body defend without overreacting. 42. Hormones and proportional growth hormones enforce proportionality, ensuring that tissues and organs grow in balance rather than at random. A body is not a random pile of independently growing parts. Organs must scale together, limbs must match torso size, blood supply must keep pace, and the heart must match total oxygen demand. Hormones help enforce this proportionality by acting as shared growth signals that coordinate timing and rate across tissues. When growth accelerates, hormones guide where resources go and how different tissues respond, preventing some regions from expanding too quickly while others lag behind. They also influence how cells interpret mechanical stress and nutrient availability, allowing growth to be shaped, not just increased. Proportionality is essential for function. The awe-inspiring insight is that development contains a sense of internal geometry. Hormones act as the body's scaling language, ensuring that growth produces a functional 43. Hormones and cellular cooperation. Hormonal signals allow cells with identical genes to cooperate instead of competing for finite resources. In a multicellular organism, survival depends on cooperation. Without coordination, individual cells could compete fiercely for nutrients, oxygen, and space, quickly undermining the whole system. Hormones prevent this by broadcasting shared priorities. They signal when collective growth should occur, when resources should be stored, and when one specific tissue should temporarily take precedence, such as muscle during a sprint. During development, hormones guide cells towards specialized roles, reducing competition by assigning permanent purpose. This chemical governance allows trillions of cells to function as a unified economy rather than a battlefield. Cooperation is not assumed in biology. It is enforced through signaling. Hormones create the rules that make collective survival possible, ensuring that individual cells serve the organism rather than themselves. 44. Endorphins. The reward-pain balance. Endorphins are the body's natural opioids, not just numbing pain, but actively weighting effort and reward in the brain. Endorphins are released in response to pain, stress, or intense physical exertion. Their primary function is to dull the sense of injury, allowing an animal to flee or fight when survival is at stake. But they also play a subtle, profound role in reinforcement. The feeling of satisfaction or relief that follows great effort, often referred to as a runner's high, is partially mediated by this system. Endorphins link effort, successful survival, and feelings of well-being, helping the brain encode that challenging actions are sometimes worth repeating. They manage the body's tolerance for discomfort, shifting the balance so that necessary actions feel possible even when painful. Endorphins are a biological mechanism for sustained persistence, linking physical endurance directly to emotional reward. 45. Dopamine, the teaching molecule. Dopamine does not create pleasure itself, but acts as a powerful learning signal that teaches the brain what to seek again. Dopamine is best understood as the prediction error molecule. When something turns out better or more important than expected, when a prediction is exceeded, dopamine activity spikes, stamping the moment with significance. This helps the brain instantly update its predictions, making certain actions, locations, or cues more attention-grabbing in the future. This is why dopamine is strongly tied to anticipation. The brain begins to respond not just to the reward itself, but to the hint of a reward, because the system is trained to prepare. This system turns raw experience into adaptive strategy, helping an animal remember where food was found, which sounds predicted safety, or which social interactions led to support. Dopamine acts like a master teacher, continuously reshaping motivation through prediction, surprise, and memory, guiding behavior toward what the brain has learned to value. 46. Dopamine. Anticipation versus reward. The critical role of dopamine is often misunderstood as simply pleasure, when in reality its main function is motivating anticipation and effort. While dopamine is released when a reward is received, the largest and most instructive burst often occurs when the reward is predicted. This is the moment the brain is learning, making a choice, or initiating action. Once the brain accurately anticipates a reward, the dopamine spike shifts. It occurs before the reward, driving the seeking behavior rather than during the reward consumption. If the expected reward fails to materialize, dopamine levels drop sharply, teaching the brain to avoid that prediction next time. If the reward exceeds expectations, the system learns to seek it more aggressively. The awe-inspiring fact is that this molecule fine-tunes the entire economic system of the mind, the balance between energy spent and potential gain, using predictive chemistry to motivate behavior. 47. Hormones and memory consolidation. Hormones profoundly influence memory consolidation, determining which details burn in and which fade away. Memory is not passively stored. It is chemically consolidated, a process that continues long after an event has passed. Hormones released during an intense experience, such as adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol, act as chemical tags that flag the event as important. These signals interact with key brain regions like the hippocampus, strengthening the formation of synaptic connections associated with the event. This is why memories tied to high emotional arousal, whether positive or negative, often become more vivid and long-lasting. Conversely, hormones associated with calm and routine allow mundane events to fade, preventing the brain from becoming clogged with irrelevant data. Hormones act as the brain's filter system, quietly deciding the hierarchy of remembrance, ensuring that lessons learned during survival or critical social moments remain at the forefront. 48. Fish schooling, chemical cohesion. Fish schooling behavior is partially coordinated through hormone-mediated chemical cues, ensuring synchronized movement. Schooling fish move with extraordinary coordination, turning and accelerating as if guided by a shared mind. While vision and pressure waves play a major role, hormones contribute by shaping responsiveness and social sensitivity. Hormonal state can influence how strongly an individual fish reacts to the movement of neighbors, adjusting alignment and spacing. Stress-related hormones can tighten schools, increasing cohesion when danger is near, while calmer states may allow looser formations. This chemical tuning helps schools remain flexible and adaptable to context. Hormones do not dictate movement directly. They set the sensitivity that allows collective patterns to emerge. Through endocrine influence, individual bodies become better listeners to the group, allowing coordinated behavior to arise from simple rules shaped by shared chemistry. 49. Invertebrate regeneration. Hormonal blueprints. Invertebrates rely on hormones to coordinate massive regeneration after injury, essentially managing the regrowth of complex structures. Many invertebrates possess remarkable regenerative abilities, the capacity to regrow entire limbs or sensory organs. Hormonal signals are central to coordinating this process. After an injury, hormones help determine which cells will divide, which will migrate, and which will specialize to rebuild missing structures. Regeneration is not simple, chaotic regrowth. It requires precise patterning, ensuring that new tissue forms the correct shape and integrates perfectly with existing systems. Hormones manage this by providing positional information and timing cues, and by regulating the energy use to ensure the process does not compromise survival. The awe-inspiring aspect is that regeneration is guided rather than chaotic. Hormones turn an injury into an organized construction project, demonstrating that healing can involve blueprint-level coordination rather than simple local repair. 50. Voice and communication. Hormonal resonance. Hormones shape voice pitch and communication styles during development, linking physical form to social function. As bodies mature, hormones influence the growth and tuning of structures involved in sound production. Vocal cords change in length and thickness, resonance spaces shift, and breathing patterns adapt. All physical changes that alter pitch and tone. But hormones also act in the brain, shaping circuits involved in communication itself. They influence how signals are timed, emphasized, and modulated in social interaction. This dual influence ensures that voice development is not only anatomical, but expressive. Communication styles evolve alongside identity, guided by chemistry that links the physical form of the sound maker with its external social role. Hormones quietly ensure that the voice grows in step with the rest of the organism, allowing sound to carry meaning shaped by maturation. 51. Hormonal feedback loops. The self-steering ship. Many hormones act as feedback loops that constantly correct themselves, ensuring stability without conscious intervention. A hormone system often behaves less like a switch and more like a self-steering ship. Sensors in the body detect a change, glands release a chemical signal, tissues respond, and then the system measures the result again to decide whether to keep going or ease off. This is how the body avoids dangerous extremes. If blood pressure shifts, if body temperature wavers, or if energy availability changes, hormonal loops automatically push conditions back toward a safer middle ground. This stability is automatic, built from chemical cause and effect. When these loops work well, you rarely notice them because they prevent dramatic swings before they can even appear. The quiet miracle is that your body spends every moment correcting itself, using hormones as a continuous internal conversation between measurement and responsive action. 52. The chemical forecast hormones enable the body to predict future needs rather than merely react to the present. Hormonal signaling is often anticipatory, not just reactive. Daily rhythms prepare the body for waking and rest before either occurs. Seasonal signals adjust metabolism and behavior ahead of environmental change. Stress hormones mobilize energy before a physical reaction begins. This forward-looking strategy maximizes efficiency and reduces costly delay. Hormones integrate past experience and present environmental cues to forecast likely demands. By adjusting internal settings in advance, the body avoids the lag time required for a nervous system response. This predictive capacity transforms biology into a forecasting system, allowing life to stay one step ahead of uncertainty. Hormones do not wait for crisis, they prepare for possibility. The endocrine system listens closely to faint clues and reorganizes itself in advance, guided by chemistry rather than conscious thought. 53. The earliest discovery. Secretin. The hormone. Secretin was the first hormone ever discovered, marking a revolution in biology. Before its identification, scientists largely believed the body communicated primarily through the nervous system. Secretin revealed an entirely different network, one where organs could signal each other through chemicals carried silently in the bloodstream. This hormone was shown to be released by the digestive tract and to influence the pancreas, a distant organ, proving that communication did not require direct wiring. The discovery instantly reshaped medicine and physiology by uncovering the endocrine system as a parallel, powerful network of control. It opened the door to identifying countless other hormones that guide growth, metabolism, reproduction, and behavior. The awe-inspiring moment is that one quiet experiment revealed the hidden, pervasive language that runs through the body. Secretin did not just add a new molecule to science, it revealed an entirely new way of understanding how life coordinates itself internally. As our journey through the quiet, coordinated world of hormones comes to a close, you can allow the remaining ideas to soften and drift. These unseen chemical messengers are still moving within you now, guiding every breath, every memory, every subtle balance, and every step toward rest, without ever asking for your conscious attention. They are part of the gentle, ancient intelligence that keeps your life steady while everything else changes around you. A reminder that even the most profound complexity can work in calm, patient ways. You don't need to hold on to every fact from tonight. Let curiosity fade into comfort. Let understanding settle beneath the surface like sediment in still water. Science does not always require effort. Sometimes it is enough to simply be aware that there is order, care, and quiet communication happening within you at every moment. If you feel your eyelids growing heavy, allow the grand story of life on Earth to wrap around you gently and guide you into calm. Don't forget to subscribe to listen to more of our bedtime stories. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and slowly drift into sleep, into silence, into the boundless, timeless current where all life intertwines. Wishing you a quiet, comforting night.